Hey everybody, this is Mike with Raw's Video. After upgrading to version 6.0, you're going to come back into a rebooted Ultrix frame. That Ultrix frame will present you with the same two functions as you're used to seeing in the past, Ultrascape and the name of the Ultrix with its IP address. If you recall, Ultrascape is our multi-viewer configuration. All of these sections have stayed the same. Configuration, layout editor, head selection, clock control. That user interface has stayed the same. Where the changes have occurred is under this next one. If I double click on it, you'll notice that there are two different sections inside of here. The product info stays the same. This is something that we had in the past. It was called system status previously, but now it's renamed as product info, and it gives you the information about the serial numbers, the uptime, the IP addresses, as well as the ability for you to transfer your databases in and out of the system. Next, you'll see that there's a system tab and a database tab. Under system, there are three different sections: configuration, control, and monitoring. Under configuration, and if I double click on the Ultrix icon here, this is where you get into the rear end view or the hardware view of the Ultrix frame. This user interface has stayed relatively similar to what we've seen in the past. There are some new functions. If you click on an IP card, for example, you'll notice here that now when I edit one of these receivers, I get the slide out that appears on the side that gives me all the different options and the alarm tracking that I'd like to see for that card. Most of the other views of the other cards that are inside of this frame have stayed relatively similar to what you've seen in the past. There are no slide outs or opening up of different sections. However, there is a section up at the top here where I can select either inputs or outputs so that I can navigate between what I'd like to see. Typically, in this user interface, what customers like to do is just click on an icon of the output or the input that they're interested in navigating to, and that will bring you directly there inside of the user interface. The rear end view or the hardware view is really the easiest way of seeing the current status of all the signals that are coming into your frame. And in general, it stays largely unchanged, except for some of the different feature enhancements that have been brought in with the newer cards. Under the Connections tab, which is the next one on the configuration section, this is where we can see all of the incoming connections that are currently connected to the Ultrix or the UltraCore BCS frame. So you can see I've got a couple dashboard connections that are currently established with that frame. Some of them are in UltraTouch, and I also have this PC that's running. You can see the different services that are available. By default, some of these are not selected when you've received the frame. You can always select to enable them if you want to use those protocols. And then the protocol servers themselves, this is where you see the information that have to do with all of the configuration options for each of the protocols that are available on the Ultrix or the UltraCore BCS. The next section under configuration is the control section. And the control section is where you're going to see all of the remote panels once we start creating them. Under monitoring, here you can see the alarm configuration for the multi-viewer section. So this is where we set the parameters that detect different types of alarms that can be displayed on the Ultrascape multi-viewer. This option is available if you have the license that's called Ultrascape CA. The next section, so now that we've looked at the system configuration, the next section is the database section. And the database section has a couple of new features inside of here. The first one is the database manager. Database manager is where we decide which of the databases that are currently loaded on the frame are going to be used actively on the system. So in your system today, with the Ultrix that exists prior to 6.0, any database that was loaded was active. Any database that was not loaded into the system was just running as a standby, waiting for you to use it. In this instance, we can actually have multiple databases loaded inside of the system and decide which one is going to be active, which one's going to be inactive. So once you're in this user interface, if you've upgraded from 5.5, you may want to import one of your old databases that were already on the Ultrix frame and convert it to a 6.0 database. That's this legacy database button that's here. And what it's going to do is going to look at your frame, look at the different databases that are in there, and allow you to import them into your system as a database that's available for 6.0. So essentially what this is doing is it's converting a 5.5 or previous version of Ultrix to a 6.0 version of Ultrix. This operation could take a couple minutes. Once it's gone through the process and it's finished converting that database, it'll be available for you to select inside of this user interface here. All right, now that that's successfully transferred over, you can see that it's appeared inside of the database as a database that's available for you to activate. Now, if you want to activate a database, you select it and activate it. And what this does is it applies that database instantaneously. So it's a very quick transition between databases being used. I'm going to go back to my original database here, activate that, and then show you some of the different interfaces that are available here. You have the ability to add your own database. You can duplicate an existing database. You can import and export those databases, as well as use the legacy database button that I showed you earlier. One of the new features that we're really excited to present is the operational modes and the ability for you to create snapshots inside of version 6.0. The autosave mode will create a snapshot at the frequency that you've put in here to basically create a snapshot, a detail of what happened in the past, so that if you do make a mistake or if you need to go back to a previous version, you can go back to the previous version in intervals that you've decided here. So 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes. It really depends on how quickly you work. 15 is the default, and what will happen here is whenever I make a change, it'll create a snapshot, and then 15 minutes after that, it'll make another snapshot, and then another one, and it'll retain 5 snapshots within this user interface so that I can come back to it at any time. I can also create manual saves. Manual saves, what this will do is, coming back to autosave. Autosave also means that I no longer have to hit the apply button anytime I make a change. It's going to automatically do that for you. So there is no apply button, there's no save button when you're in this autosave mode. When you're in manual save mode, you'll notice that there's a little golden border that's appeared around my user interface. This also makes the save button appear inside of my user interface as well. So this is my indication that now I have to apply save anytime I make changes. And then the protect mode is really just going to give me an in-between where I can hit the save button if I'd like, or I'm going to protect the database from being manipulated at any time. So it's just going to give me a little shield here to tell me that the database is active, but it's currently protected, so no changes can be made. So the most common function is the autosave mode, and you can create manual snapshots at any time, assuming you've made changes to your database. The next section over here is the database builder. This is a function that we've had before in previous versions of software, where you have the ability to create your own database by using this wizard. So essentially you just have to fill out the information however you'd like to see the database created inside of here. Give that database a name so that you can use the configuration and then go through and build it. We have a separate tutorial that explains all the different features inside of the database builder. You can look forward to seeing that on our channel quite soon. The next section, once you've created your database and it is active, there is the configuration of that database. And here you can see that some of these different configurations are similar to what we had in the past, things like the levels, destinations, sources. However, there are some new functions inside of here as well. And throughout a series of tutorial videos, I'll be explaining each of these different sections so that we can go through them all individually and understand how they each work. This is the database, so if I take a look at sources, you'll see that my source inputs are in this database, the same with destinations. The next section down below is the control section where you find all of your software panels. So it's nested a little bit differently than what we've seen in the past, but the software control panels are still available for you to use here. All right, so that's a quick overview of what's available inside of the new user interface with Ultrix version 6.0. You can look for our other tutorial videos that go through and explain each of the individual functions in more detail.